Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming back with us from your lunch break. And for those who've had a virtual lunch, we're so glad that you could enjoy lunch without us. We're going to start the second set of conversations. The first of those is already happening virtually, which is the ethical implications of digital inequalities in a rapidly growing country. So that is already happening online. If you're already logged on, please just go to one of the side sessions and you'll be able to see it. But the panel that I'm about to introduce to you here is the one on access denied, addressing the entrenched exclusion and magnified digital inequalities due to the surge in transition in the digital technology. And I'm happy to invite the moderator for that panel, another Raymond. Please, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Raymond, for taking us up to this time. Welcome our dear stakeholders, viewers, and those physically present. This afternoon, we shall dissect a discussion that will tell us the digital inequalities, and then we shall try to see if we can discuss the gaps, and then finally we shall also see how the digital platforms can be delivered without compromising security. So as Raymond said, we are discussing a topic, access denied, addressing entrenched exclusion and magnified digital inequalities due to the surge in transition to digital technology and platforms during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. So with me, I'll have a panel of 5 experts. Allow me invite them to take their seats so that we can dissect this topic. We have Evelyn Amara from Vouch Digital. Can you please join me on the stage? Anyway, feel free. I'll ask her to introduce herself later. Let me first call all my panelists to take their seats. We have Jamila Mayombe from OITEC. Thank you. We have Shane Senyonga from Cloud and Pillar. Thank you. We have Mr. Collins Mugume from Coldev. And finally, we shall be joined by Mr. Anatoly Chirigawo from Yunga Technologies. Okay. Anatoly will be joining us. So allow me ask my panelists to introduce themselves, and then we can quickly delve into this discussion. Starting from my far right.
Thank you, Raymond. My name is Jamila Mayombe. I am co-founder and CTO of IoTech Limited.
Hi everyone, my name is Evelyn Namara. I'm the founder and CEO of Vouch Digital. We are in the business of working with governments, development agencies, as well as businesses who look at dispersing goods and services, transparently do that using a digital platform and e-voucher system.
Good to have you, Jamil.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Shane Senyonga. I'm co-founder and CEO of Cloud and Pillar. We are in the business of providing digital solutions.
Thank you. Good to have you this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Collins Mugume. Well, originally my introduction said CallDev, but I'm here in capacity of co-founder and CEO for Pay24 Financial Services. We are a digital micro-lending fintech where we're trying to, grow financial inclusion in Uganda and in Africa as a continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Collins. All right, so let us go into our discussion tonight. We shall hold our discussion in 4 dimensions. We shall look at the dimensions of digital inequalities in the digital space. We shall then look at the impact of the digital inequalities, specifically during the COVID-19 pandemic and the respective lockdowns throughout the globe. And finally, we shall look at the digital security issues for consideration as you guys put the digital platforms on board for people to enjoy. So what are those security concerns that we must keep in control of so that people can enjoy, consume our services securely? And then finally, each of us will give their own individual opinions on what must be kept in control as we put these digital platforms online without compromising the information security triad. That is confidentiality, integrity, and what? Availability. So let's start with Evelyn. We all know that technology is a dependency to the digital innovation, right? So to what extent have these technology innovations been responsible for the digital inequalities, in your view?
All right, thank you so much, moderator. So this is a very valid point that you bring about. I mean, especially for the last 2 years, everyone is talking about how digital is enabling things and everything is happening online, but we seldom talk about the inequalities that are actually, happening. So I'll start this looking at the perspective of a tech startup that I am, and some of the considerations I have to go to when I'm building technology for my end users. So the first thing we're looking at, for instance, if I'm building technology, is that I have to think about how the end users are going to consume it. And in that aspect, there are digital consumers that are in urban areas and consumers that are actually not in urban areas. So the very first point is where the inequality comes in is that even from the concept of me building the technology, I'm already thinking about my rural consumers and thinking my solution needs to be consumed on USSD for these specific people. My solution needs to be consumed using a mobile phone, a smartphone for these kinds of consumers. The experience for those two is not going to be the same. Because if my guys who are accessing my platform on USSD, yes, they will get the experience of going through the platform, looking at it, but they will not get the same sort of experience as a person who's using my smartphone app that does exactly the same thing. So already as you build, you start segmenting, what kind of technologies you're supposed to create for a specific segment of people and what you need to create for a specific segment of people. And that already creates some sort of inequality in how people access, in how people consume your product, but also in the outcomes that you get. So those are some of the inequalities I see from a tech perspective and building perspective. And I think majority of that then goes into the bigger picture of But what would you do? I mean, you're still trying to solve a problem, and still the problem is being solved. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cause inequalities to happen. So those are some of the dimensions I look at, like even sitting down before you start building tech, you still have these things behind your head of who am I building for? What do I want them to achieve? And what are the things that I have to compromise in terms of either the service for them to still get it, or the experience definitely is different for those two consumers. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Later on, you'll be telling us how we can close those gaps.
Absolutely.
Now that we know them. Let us go to Jamila. Take us into the economic perspective. We all know that the digital revolution is transforming economies, right? There are potential gains from the digital technologies. Do these new opportunities come with challenges, given that within the economies themselves, we see that income and wealth are not leveled?
Absolutely. So when you think about, first of all, Raymond, thank you so much for that question. When you think about digital inequality from the point of view of economics, it's quite like a twofold situation going on. You have companies or economies in this country that are able to provide their businesses on the digital landscape. And they are companies that cannot afford to do that. So what's going to happen is that for the companies that can afford to provide their services over the internet or using the digital landscape, of course they're going to have a bigger markup over the companies that can't, meaning that they're going to benefit more. They're going to basically make bigger decisions, because if they run or rule the markets, then it's going to be their inputs that's going to drive the economy, and it's going to drive the policies or the businesses that drive the economy, which means that digital divide and the income inequality is going to get even bigger. So as technologists, we have to get to a point where we are not trying to only serve the companies that are already versatile and knowledgeable using digital platforms, but we have to get to a point where we are able to also bring other people along that are not yet there, and make this technology not just for the people who already are affluent in technology, but for everybody. I mean, in the morning we had a discussion that basically says that internet is looked at as a human right. So if we look at it from that point of view, then it behooves us to get to a point where we're like, okay, so how can we enable companies, businesses, small, medium enterprises that are whose leaders or whose owners are non-technical savvy, to get to a point where they can get their businesses on the digital platform and just beyond Uganda and to the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shen, take us to the educational perspective. Many scholars and many people say that the digital inequalities can only be addressed by having accessibility. That's what most people say. But you also know that skills and usage through education is critical. In your view, what is your opinion in that space?
Thank you, Raymond. The readiness of our people to partake digital solutions in education is lacking. You know, when we're developing solutions, we get excited. You have an idea, you get excited. I can come up with this app, with this platform where people can do ABCD, and you're excited, you go ahead and build it. And then reality hits you after that. In my case, we built an education app last year, and we were excited. I was excited because education is I'm very passionate about it. And I'm excited I can help kids who are not in school now learn from even the best teachers in the country they have no access to. And we went ahead with my team, we built an app, and then close to launching, and now realize we need to get the teachers to actually use the app, create the content, and they're not literate. They can't produce a good course for a child to take and learn from. And then it hits us, okay, this is video. How many people can afford the cost? Another problem. Then it hits us, oh, actually most of the people we want to reach don't have devices. So we have these gaps, we have these pertinent issues that we need to solve: infrastructure, we need to solve the people who are using these platforms. We need to help the teachers to learn. We need to educate parents that your children can use apps even in times when they're not in school. Parents think, okay, school is closed, my child can go and dig in the meantime and contribute to the household income. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do in the sphere in terms of digital solutions helping education, and we have a big mountain because we are lagging behind. The World Bank says about 53% of our children are not, 10 years old, are not literate enough. And COVID has worsened that, and it's probably now at 63%, and we're lagging behind. And if we don't innovate and help our people faster, we are going to lag behind a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shen. Collins, inclusion for all, right? Talk to us about the measure to address this digital inequality in terms of inclusion. You've just told us that you've just built an app from the fintech side. Do you think everyone across the country and the globe will be able to use your app?
Okay. Well, thing is, yes, there's still a gap, okay, in terms of accessibility or the use of digital across different socials, okay, different levels of people. But what we need to do, or a lot has been done. I mean, if you look at, like they said earlier, the internet is a big contributor to get us to appreciate the digital solutions or what can be done on the digital side of things. If you look at Uganda as a country or as a market, yes, internet accessibility is still expensive, but a lot has happened in terms of making it affordable over the years. And it's things like this that really change or grow this sort of digital inclusion that we are talking about, that reduces the inequality that we're talking about. Now, when it comes to people like me, or developers, entrepreneurs, and people who are creating things, like Evelyn said earlier, when we're building solutions, it's important to also think across the spectrum. Okay, don't only think for high-end users, like what he just talked about. Yes, in education, they built an app and they didn't really think through what the requirements would be, and they met all these different roadblocks along the way. So this is what I think can be done, and I'm also going to speak from experience from what we have done, right? I look at the finance side of things, okay? Finance is such a big thing in Africa, in Uganda, like accessibility to credit. It's bad. Over 78% of Ugandans actually do not access credit. Things like telecoms have done great things to try and, grow that in terms of make credit money accessible using things like mobile money and things like that. Now, this is where people like us come in and try and see how we can tap into digital to make it possible. So what we've developed, what we put together is a digital solution where we're able to actually give, people are able to access money from their mobile phones. And in a market like Uganda, we have a huge number of people that are getting devices, smartphone devices every year. The prices for smartphone devices have dropped over the years, which now makes it very easy for people to actually, jump onto being digitized, getting these smartphones, which is like the entry for you to, have digital access. So what I would say in terms of inclusion, social inclusion, or inclusion for all, or affordability, is a lot has been done. Internet is becoming more affordable. Can a lot more be done? Yes. Is it still expensive? Technically, it's still expensive, but we are better than where we were a couple of years ago. accessibility. Are the gadgets and the devices available? Yes, there are now much cheaper smartphones available on the market, right? And even these telecoms and these company enablers are doing so much to make it possible for people to have accessibility in terms of gadgets. I mean, I know a number of telecoms are running campaigns where it's now even possible for you to own a smartphone device on credit, okay? And then you come in now to the financial side of things for people like us. We've also made it possible for you to access credit using digital. So I think a lot is being done in terms of inclusion, and I really want to applaud people like our company, people like the telecoms, people who are doing a lot to make access to digital services possible. And I want him to push them and say, guys, a lot can be done. There's still more opportunities to be picked up. There's still a large spectrum of people to tap into. So yeah, let's do more, and yeah, and again, our work that has been done has been recognized. Yeah.
Thank you, Colin. Now, this digital inequality monster is before us. Shamila called it digital divide. So in about a minute or two, each of us, do you think the mindset of our people globally has a contribution to this inequality?
I can start. Thank you, Raymond, for that great question. So to answer your question about if I think that the mindset of the people globally is the reason we're having the digital divide, I don't think it's a mindset problem. I think it's kind of like a governance and infrastructure problem. The term digital divide was coined about 25 years ago, and it started in the United States, where I think some senators had traveled to a school in Cupertino, California. So they go to this school, and there were these 8-year-old kids on iMac computers, just learning how to use computers, right? So now they leave that school, and 10 minutes down the road, they go to a different school, and these kids had never touched computers before in the US. So that was crazy, because when you think about it, the digital divide, if I can use an analogy, it's kind of like a railway. So if you have the rails already built, that means that a train can move on the rails. And then the carriages are basically the services and the products that enable you to use the rail. So if we do not have the rails, the internet, it's not because of my mindset or your mindset, it's because I don't have access to the rails. So if we as a country or the lawmakers, business owners are able to come together and provide an environment where internet is readily available to everybody, then our mindsets can change around it if the services that we need to better our lives are going to be found on the internet. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamira. Evelyn, your opinion?
Yeah, I definitely would love to agree with most of the things Shamila said. When you think about the digital divide, and I implore all of you, if you haven't read the Alliance for Affordable Internet report that just came out, I think probably a few weeks back, it talks about the cost of exclusion, of excluding women specifically on the internet. And even just from a gender perspective of just excluding women from the internet, it's costing governments billions of dollars. And when you look through that, most of those things that are in that report are things that we can do. It's not about mindset, it's about governance, it's about policy makers. So in a country like Uganda, when you look at the indexes out there, if you look at all of the reports that have been done with, from GSMA to the World Bank, you'll see that we are lagging behind from a policy perspective. So you have to be ready as a country if you want your country to actually be on the same level. You have to have the right rights in place. You've got to have the right education in place. You have to be intentional with everything that you're doing. Access has got to be at the center of all of your policies. You have to think about content. Is it meaningful? You have to look at targets. Are you impacting, and are you looking at the indicators and saying, are we there yet? So as a country, there's a lot that you need to do from a policy perspective. to enable the ground so that when people come up, if a child is starting to use the internet, then they know they have access to content, they have access to ABC, but all of those have to come from a policy perspective. And if a country has weak policies, for instance, I'll just point on just a few policies as a country that we've had in the past. If you have a policy that maybe makes data, the cost of data really high, or if you have a policy that says, you know, the next day social media has to be taxed, all of that make affordability more expensive. The countries that don't have those policies. And so that makes the divide even more higher and takes us at least more years before we can get to where we need to be. So there's a lot that needs to be done, but it needs to start with the policymakers. It needs to start from the governance perspective.
Thank you, Evelyn. Another solution, policies. Shen, your opinion?
I think it's a combination of policy in access, in terms of infrastructure. Policy, I think technology, especially using it, is not so expensive. We can catch up, but we need our policymakers to decide that let's get there. We can try and compete and actively work on it, put policies in place to enable uptake of technology. But also mindset, I think is an issue. It shouldn't be dismissed. I have a very live recent example. We built a solution for an organization that has a tournament. They have this tournament every year. They've had it for decades. And normally they have papers, people who want to participate, fill in the papers, take money, cash or mobile money, and they're admitted to the tournament. So they come to us, they want an online solution. They want people to go online, do their registrations, and even pay. So that they don't start collecting money, who has paid, where we lost this paper, those things. And we developed it. And people said, I don't understand this stuff. Can I do it manually? Do you have forms? I can't do this. And then the people in charge had to tell them, no, this is the only solution we have. You must do it like that. And there's been a lot of resistance, but
it's the only means.
Yes. So people are starting to allow to change. Mindset is also very important. You can have all these things in place, but if the mindset is not worked on, also uptake will be a problem.
Evelyn, you want to
Can I just react to that really quick? Yeah, no, I think I sort of understand when he talks about mindset, but also, and I would love to say, is that a mindset issue or is that a training issue? Because if I'm not familiar with using this phone, and I'm an Android person 100%, and you bring me an iPhone and you're like, oh, here is a gadget, use it. I need to have some basic skill of understanding how to use that gadget for me to be comfortable to use it. But I feel like if they're given the right tools and skills to say, now, this is a new platform that we are giving you, and this is how it's going to transform your life, and this is how you're supposed to use it, then I feel like then people get there. But in most cases, I feel like we drag them to the horse, drag the horse to the river, and you're like, drink. But there are a lot of things there that need to be captured in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. But the example I used, the people I'm talking about, they're well-to-do people. They attend Zoom meetings, board meetings. But because they're used to a certain way of doing something, analog way, they still want to go through that process, and they're resistant to the change, to the solution, to the digital solution. So still, we need to really, really work on the mindset change.
Okay, you bring another perspective of change resistance. But Collins, tell us, do you think mindset should be worked on to remove the digital inequalities?
Yes, and no. Yes, on the side of, I actually agree with what everyone here has just said. Yes, there's an issue of mindset, okay? And I'm also going to, just to sort of like back that up, if you look at the things that we've had in this country, the things that have happened in this country, you know, some have not been policies, some have been decisions done by our leadership on certain things. That is not an issue of I'm making this decision because I do not know. It's an issue of I'm making this decision because my mindset, I'm thinking this way, okay? So that's where the mindset comes in bit. Because if our leadership is able to make some decisions based on how they think things should be done, and such actions affect this digital inequality, there's an issue there, right? That's one. Then there's an issue of training and education and awareness, okay? Some of these things, these digital resources or digital solutions that are there that would remove the inequality are available, but not enough training and awareness has been done to make people appreciate them or know how they can make their lives easier or how they can be utilized, okay? That's something else that has to be looked at. So yes, definitely there's an issue of mindset change, there's an issue of training and awareness, then there's an issue of policies, which has already been talked about by all the other panelists here. So yeah, 3 things that I think would probably need to be looked at. But yes, mindset is definitely something that needs to be considered.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, panelists. We have so far discussed the dimensions of digital inequalities. We looked at the technology perspective, the economic perspective, the education perspective, the social perspective, and the mindset perspective. But now, let's come to the real item, the impact of the digital inequalities, specifically during the pandemic and the lockdowns that happened. Evelyn, yes, you'll start with us again. Are people at the same pace in digital transformation?
Absolutely not. That's the short answer. No, we are not. We are definitely not. And to be quite honest, when the pandemic hit, everyone got excited about how everything has gone online, and now the world is a much better place. You can sit down and just using your phone, you know, call your doctor and everything. You're in heaven, basically, because everything is going digital. But no, not everyone stays in Kampala, not everyone stays in the capital city. So when you think about the inequalities, think about your mother or your grandmother in the village, or like literally what we are facing today in the education system. You're telling kids to stay home, but there's an option of live streaming education, right? Some people who can afford it can now live stream, and your kids are online, they can access their content online, but the people in the villages don't have that privilege, right? So the inequality there is that the people won't actually have access, but yet in some aspect where the digital transformation has actually helped people, you're like, all right, now we are not in the classroom, you can now live stream. That's an inequality. When you think about telemedicine, today I can sit down and go to Rocket Health and ask them to come and pick a sample at my house, and voila, they'll be there in very few minutes, and I'll have a sample taken and my blood will go. What about guys who can't even afford that sort of a privilege if you're out in the village? So you find that even as we are moving higher, we are excited about the transformations of this technology. There's still people who are lagging behind. And the fundamental aspects of what we spoke about in terms of, for me, I call it meaningful access. Let access be meaningful for everyone. As a person in the village, as a person in town, if we are not having the same sort of experience using digital technologies, then there's a disconnect there. And so we have to solve the problems of, if you're doing live streaming and I can't, that means I don't have education. If you're doing telemedicine and I can't, that means from a health perspective, I'm lagging behind. If you're able to call a safe border to take you for transportation using your mobile phone and I can't because I'm somewhere else, there's a disconnect there. So there's so many disconnecting aspects when it comes to technology and the transformations that we're facing today. And yes, we'll talk about the solutions, but definitely there's a disconnect right there.
Thank you. So there was an impact. Were impacted by the pandemic?
Yes, definitely. There was an impact, both good, like I said. It's amazing that people can still have school. Those who can afford it, you can still get a Zoom class. It's amazing that I can call a doctor and I can still actually have my samples taken in a very short time. I can go to the market. I don't have to go to the market, and I can call an app and people will bring my produces in my house. So there's an impact right there. But when you think about the other half of the population that is not on the internet, how is
Like
that
a person in Shema?
Exactly. How is that impacting them? They probably don't even know there's a Safe Border app that exists. So then there's a disconnect because I'm in Kampala, I have the good life, but someone literally just a few kilometers away is not having the same experience that I have.
Thank you. Shamila.
The name is Jamila.
Jamila.
Yes.
Nice.
Thank you, Jamila. Now, years back, we were told that Uganda was laying a backbone to give connectivity to everyone, access in every district. Do you think there is connectivity available and reliable for everyone, even people in Bunyaruguru or people in Katakwi and Kampala?
Well, the short answer to that is no. Internet is not readily available to everybody in Uganda. But the long answer to that is that so for the longest time, we've had mainly 2 internet service providers in the country, and those are the big telcos. So that's MTN and Airtel. And to give them credit, they have done really a great job to make sure that their voice network is readily available in the most parts of the country. And so when they added internet access on top of that, it was a very welcome effort. But if you notice that that internet it's readily available in Greater Kampala and Wakiso, but when you step out of those spaces, it's almost close to nothing. So over the years, we've had other service providers get into the market. So we've had Rock, we've had Liquid, we've had Simba, to name a few, and those have been really, really helpful because we've gotten to a point where internet is not only accessible by business owners, but also homes can basically set up like a home network. But still, that is also only available to the people who already had access through the telcos. So it's like the ones who have are getting much more, and the ones who do not have still are getting basically the end of the stick. And so the inequality for access to internet is growing wider and wider. And even Kampala itself, not all of Kampala is covered by most of these service providers. Like you'll find that still there are particular areas in Kampala that have access to like the new, like you could find Liquid is not everywhere in Kampala. You will find Rock is not available everywhere in Kampala. So you have to be in specific regions in Kampala to get access to very good internet. Our government, a few years ago, I don't know if you guys remember this, there was this campaign to get a Wi-Fi connection in Kampala. I don't know if any of us have ever connected to it.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, but it was a thing that was going around and government was making so much noise for it, and we don't know what happened to that. So if the policymakers, I'm going to be really hard on the policymakers, because if they do not understand the value that internet provides to our citizens, we shall come back next year and have the same conversation, because we have to get to a point where we realize that internet is a human right, and the people in power, the people in charge, should look at it from that point of view and do whatever it takes to make sure that every Uganda has access to good and affordable internet, the same way we have access to water and electricity, even if all of those things are still not yet available as they should throughout the whole country.
Thank you, Jamila. Collins, you want to?
Yeah, I just want to chip in a bit on that in terms of connectivity. Is connectivity available and reliable everywhere? Here's the interesting bit of what I've discovered. Telecoms have actually done so much. Like, for example, Airtel has nationwide coverage of 4G. So essentially, anywhere that you are in Uganda, you'll actually have access to Airtel internet, okay? In terms of, is it available? Yes, it's available. Is it reliable? Interestingly, when you're out of the city or out of the crowded areas, your internet or connectivity speed is actually much better than when you're in a crowded place, which is amazing. So is it reliable? Yes. But the issue is it affordable? That's where the problem comes in. So I feel like, again, I feel like the providers have done so much in terms of making connectivity available, making it reliable, but probably there's still a lot that can be done, again, from the uphead coming down, cascaded down to the service providers, in terms of making it more affordable to everyone to reduce the inequality.
Thank you. Thank you, Collins. Shen, COVID came, were hit, the world was hit, Uganda was hit. That was negative. But people like you who are innovative looked at some opportunities. So do you think that people are, or our people, are using those enormous opportunities that the pandemic showed us?
I would say no, mainly no. Innovators, of course, we are trying to use the opportunities available by creating. I can, yes, there's an issue of internet accessibility. The networks have done very well, like Colin said. It's there, it's not affordable to most of our people. And really policy needs to solve some issues. If we know majority of our people are poor, we know the digital era is here. Why are we overtaxing the internet that is now like a human right that everyone needs? Let's make it more affordable. Government can help a lot on that. There's also affordability of gadgets, of machines to use. They're very expensive for most of our people. And I'm not trying to be like a communist, but I think government really needs to put in place solutions to help our people afford some of these things, because we can get ahead. At least we can compete. Unlike the way we failed to compete before in other eras, in the digital era, information is available, it's everywhere. But also, there's a big issue that we need to solve as innovators, private sector, civil society, of digital literacy. When the president announced that we're going to have scientific campaigns, they said they're going to be on radio and TV. I don't think that happened. So we came up with a solution. We called it campaigning. And it works more like TikTok, if you know it. So all a candidate had to do is download the app, register, and they could record videos, like generally campaign. It was that simple. And the voters, you put in your national ID, then it picks where you're voting from and gives you the feed only for the people relevant to you. We were thinking, no-brainer. We finish the app, we launch it. The people, the candidates, didn't want to hear it. They wanted to go and talk to the people physically. The users, oh, my data, I can't even download the app. It's 50 MBs, I don't have that. Those are things, yeah. Of course they're valid. They're valid, but it comes back to the question of availability, of affordability, of the internet, but also we need digital literacy, because we'll make all these solutions and our people won't be able to use them.
Okay, thank you, Shen. Collins, you see, when I was growing up, my dad used to tell me that a problem shared is halfway solved. The pandemic came and hit us. In your view, do we see need for unity to collaborate between you guys in the private sector and government so that things can be made easier for people?
I like how you've started it. Yes. Personally, I'm a strong believer of collaboration compared to competition. I'm the kind of person that will actually sit down with my direct competitor and we break bread. Why? Because at the end of the day, I believe joint efforts are able to deliver much more in terms of benefiting your customers than you just going after each other and trying to, being selfish and get the best out of whatever you can. So yes, Collaboration is very, very important. And like you said, public-private partnership, there's no two ways around it. It's definitely important. I know a lot has been done in terms of government being flexible, in terms of working with the private sector, in terms of providing some of these services. And if I just to give you an example from the private sector private sector side of things, all the successful or all the private sector companies that have actually been able to have a solid impact, no matter the sector, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's transport, they have not done it alone. They have done it because they've been able to collaborate and get their efforts together. Because you'll never be good at everything. You'll never be good at everything. So yes, there's need for us to be able to work together with government. There's need for government to work together with private sector, for us to be able to work, put energies together and deliver solutions for the citizens of Uganda, for the people of Uganda.
Thank you. Thank you. I like your opinion on that. Now, each of us, you guys have put up digital platforms out there. Okay? Are people accepting them? Is usage very good? Are people accepting that the digital world is the way to go? Maybe if we could start with you, Collins, and then we go.
I'll say yes. This is why. I'll try and tap it in terms of sectors. Look at food in the food restaurant space of things. Apps cropped up during COVID, right? Because online services, deliveries, they made a killing. I mean, businesses like Safe Border literally flipped their business from just being a transport company to a logistics company. And they couldn't have done that if people were not embracing digital, that digital is a war of things. Look at guys like Jumia. Jumia grew. I mean, if you look at their numbers from the time pre-COVID and post-COVID, it's insane. And that is because people actually adapted that now they don't need to leave their houses to go and buy things. They're able to do that. Rocket Health, I mean, for them, I can't even tell you what they've been able to do. It's a major success story. And all this is because people were able to adapt to the new way of doing things. So yes, there has been a change. People have adapted digital. And I believe more can be done. And I'm very excited. I feel COVID moved us 5 years ahead of where it would be in terms of acceptability to the digital way of life. So there's a good thing out of every bad thing that happens.
Thank you. Shane, are your apps being accepted?
Yes, yes and no. In urban areas, in the cities, in Kampala, yes, people use them. Like you said, Safe Border, Jumia, and the food apps. But if you're going to do serious business, you need to scale. We need to look at the millions that we have. And it goes back to the point of digital literacy. We need a solution. And maybe we, as innovators and private sector, we need to maybe dedicate some of our budget towards digital literacy, empower those people to consume our products to help everyone.
Thank you, Shane. Evelyn?
Yeah, that's a question that takes me back to, my mind starts blowing when I think about that question. And here's why. I always feel like we need to move away from looking at technology in terms of just apps and, apps, are they being accepted, and it's become an app ecosystem. And to going back to a framework of user-centered design and really coming down to who are we solving a problem for, and how big a demographic are those people, and talking to them in a way that they understand the benefits of what we are going to now bring forward. So that technology then becomes just an avenue within which a product or a service is delivered. If you look at it that way, then if my grandmother is in the village and I need to send her money, it's not about me using mobile money to send you money. It's about, how about in 1 minute, I can get you money to go to the hospital, as opposed to, let's say, the years back when you had to go to the post office and then put money on the bus, and then it gets to you. So when I'm a user, I want to hear more of what are you solving for me, and then let your technology be in the backbone of what you're doing for me. Then that way we can scale the solutions, and that way we can speak to what people actually care about, which is their problem being solved. Trust me, most people don't care about the technologies we are putting out there. They don't. They just care that you're solving a problem that they have. And how you do it is the avenue of the technology. And so I always believe that sometimes even when why the uptake doesn't come is because we go saying, yo, I have an app. Here's the app, download it, your life is going to get better. You're selling the wrong product, because I don't care about your app. I care that when I wake up, I have a problem and you're solving it for me. And the way you're solving it is by using this piece of technology. Then someone will listen to you more. So in that aspect, I feel like, yes, now the solutions that you're talking about, you know, if I am home and I'm sick and you're telling me, oh my goodness, I'll be able to get you a doctor in 1 second and you don't have to line up for 20 hours, then I understand how that should be a solution that I should actually go for. So I know I've gone on and on, but it just builds. It's a broader perspective of how we look at technology and solving the problems that we have. And if we can change the narrative of looking at what are we solving, who are we solving for, then more uptake would be taken, because people would feel included in that process of solving the problem for them.
Thank you. I like your insights. Yes, Jamira.
Right. So at IoTech, our business model is really to build software for businesses. So because of that, it's been a very high uptake for the services that we provide. And to chime into what Evelyn has said is that when we meet business owners, we're not coming at them with like, oh, there's this technology. We come in to understand their businesses and to understand the pain points in their businesses. And in most cases, what we do is to automate their business processes and take away the pain points. And how we do that is by using the thing that we know how to do well, which is technology, and building applications to solve the problems that they do. So because of that mindset, we're able to have a high uptake of the services that we provide, because we are not coming into the door with technology. We are coming into the door with, hey, what problems are impeding your businesses from getting from level A to level B, and this is how we can help you to get there.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, now we have looked at how the pandemic hit us. We have looked at how we're impacted. Now, you guys are out there in the digital world. You've brought solutions to the public. So, I need us now to advise both the private sector and the government as we bring these digital platforms online. What are those security issues that need to remain in control, so that as we solve these inequalities we've talked about, we remain safe? So, let me start with Evelyn. Cybercrime. How would you advise players in the digital world to remain protected against these criminals?
Yeah.
We are starting with the private sector. We shall tackle government later.
Okay, private sector. So, cyber. I think with the most uptake and everyone getting online and everyone getting so excited about being online, we forget about the devil that is the internet. And there are good opportunities, but there are also fears of the internet, and that's where cyber crimes come in.
So digital security comes in now, right?
Absolutely, digital security comes in. And because most people just get the gadgets and you're excited about getting the work done, most people forget that aspect of how do you keep yourself secure. And I think the very starting point, especially for private businesses, is to be very intentional about having a cybersecurity. I know sometimes, of course, budget-wise, people might not have someone dedicated to that, but it's a very big aspect, especially for private sector players that have big IT sections. You have to have a cybersecurity person in place to help understand what's going on. You have to be trained. You have to have all your users be trained on the basic aspects of using the internet and their gadgets. Stuff like from the very basic stuff of how you log into your computer, what are some of the fundamental things of how your password should be set up, and not sharing your passwords left, right, center, how you go onto secure sites using HTTPS. So there's all of those different aspects of using the internet from the, of course, the private sector perspective that people need to know about. And this is all an educational aspect, because most people are excited, they have the gadgets, most people are excited, they're online, but then you forget the devil that is cyber crimes. And so I think the very first step on every cybersecurity training I've been on is it starts with you, the user themselves, to understand what your role is. When you log on and you're now on the other side, what is happening to the world. There's so many people who have lots of time, and so many people have lots of resources, and they can dedicate those to either doing good or doing bad. So if they find that you're vulnerable in your passwords, if they find that you're going to any website without you being very conscious about technology, if you're just putting in your credit cards, on any website you go to, so especially with now the uptake of e-commerce, how do you know which are the fake sites? How do you know which ones to actually put in your credit card and be safe? So it's all an educational aspect, and I think it should start in-house in terms of businesses being very intentional in training their users on how to use from a user perspective, but also from the server end, training their expertise, the team, to help ensure that all of their users are safe by putting in place the right mechanisms. So it's an educational piece.
Thank you so much. I come from the banking world. Yes, banks, of course, will not say, but we have issues down there. We have issues down. So this cybersecurity is a serious issue as we put the digital platforms online. Now, let me go to Jamira. Yes, you guys are CEOs. As you put these platforms online, what are those pain points in management that digital players must remain in control of?
So I believe that as digital players and people who build software platforms, we have to get to the mindset of thinking of security as a first-class citizen and not something that you think as a by the way when your product is out there and you're like, oh, how can I safeguard this thing and rein it in so that the people who are using my platforms are not affected by cybercrime. So the idea of security first has to be prevalent in the business, and the people who are managing these businesses should have that type of value system. So all the way from the development team, how code is reviewed, how code is written, basically the knowledge that you avail your developers, the research and development team to actually avail themselves with knowledge of what security they need to put in place for their platforms. There's a lot of information on the internet that we can use while building these platforms to make sure that they are safe for our users, and the data that we collect from our users is securely kept, and also it doesn't get into the hands of people who shouldn't have it. So definitely security first should be a mindset that most of the technology companies should have, and also definitely not just say, but actually implement.
Thank you. Shane, when the pandemic hit, of course, people like you who are into application development, you realized that you had to put more things online. You needed to solve problems, right? At the same time, you already had some services that were already in production. How would you advise the private sector to do that? What method should they use properly to put new services online without affecting those already in production?
It's a good one. Difficult. In my experience, especially in Uganda, we were not ready. Very many businesses did not have online capabilities, and you find yourself you have to close, and everyone is working from home. So problems start now. You tell your people take your laptops home and work from home. Security issues come in. Information is being lost. I think now it's time we are realizing now, a bit late, but post-COVID, we need to innovate systems, especially digital security systems that are adaptable to crisis, that ensure that work continues even beyond lockdowns, for example. We shouldn't be caught offside next time certain things happen where businesses have to close because you have to work from home. In my experience, we are an IT firm, but our work was pegged back because our people were used to come work from office. There was internet access. We tell people we need to deliver this platform in ABC time, and it can't happen. I have poor connectivity. So we need solutions that enable us for people to work online, to do them now for the next time there's a crisis, especially this time where we have global warming. You never know what's going to happen. So,
okay. Actually, bring in a very good perspective that I wanted Colin to discuss. Okay, in business, it's called business continuity, but as in the tech side, in most cases, we call it disaster recovery. There's a very good example recently that hit Facebook and WhatsApp. So, Collins, what are the must-haves for people in the digital space to keep services, to keep people work from wherever they are and keep services available so that consumers can have them from wherever they are? What are those things that must be fixed for business to continue even when there is an issue, even when there is a pandemic?
Can I be honest? One of the things that actually keeps me up at night is the issue of business continuity. There's nothing, and I'll tell you the truth, there's nothing as crazy as when your systems go down just because of a small mistake.
Unexpected outages.
We're a tech company. I can't tell exactly what happened to Facebook. The official story was the CDNs were not communicating. We do not know. Okay, it could have been that. Maybe it was an outage in one of the CDNs that was supposed to route the traffic through all of them. We do not know. But the thing is, business continuity is very, very important. And I'll give you another scenario. Recently, in this platform that we've built, we obviously, as developers, there's always a test server, then there's a production server and everything. So under the running late on delivering a certain feature, and the developers were working overtime to get this done. And this guy forgot to remove a slash out of the code, just a slash out of the code, took it live, right? And next thing, we're just seeing customers complaining, guys, I can't pay. And all of us are thinking, what's happening? Why is the money not coming in? Only to go back and realize we made a mistake. We didn't take we didn't follow our own processes, our own SOPs. We didn't have a second eye on the code. We didn't have another guy look at the code and make sure everything is right. Stupid mistakes that most of people do because we are in a rush. So as far as business continuity, there's one thing I tell myself, and I've told my people, and I still tell people, as you're running a company, whether you're developing an IT solution, a tech solution, develop local, but think global. Yes. Do not just think there's no one who's going to figure out how to hack my website and deface it. No, there's a Russian guy that will make that happen. Because your website is not just for Uganda. Do not think, in Uganda there's no one who's going to figure out how to hack my app. No, they will. And it happens all the time. I tell you guys, there are people who are sitting down every other day trying to figure out what loopholes you have left. So as you build whatever solution you're building for the sake of business continuity, build it locally, but think global. Think you're building against the smartest guy you can ever think of. So as you do your website, think of closing all the doors. Think of what will happen, what protections can I put in place? How many, what passwords are we using? The password is one of the most reckless mistake that people do. Someone is creating a password and all they're doing today is, let's say, this is DigiSecCon 2021, and then creates a password, DigiConSecCon 2022, or password DigiConSec, and you're like, man, this is small things that we need to think about, and these are things that affect our businesses in terms of business continuity. Think through every tiny little detail as far as your security is concerned, because there's someone out there who's going to break your system and your business will definitely be affected.
Evelyn, you want to bring in an insight?
As Collins was speaking, I got an insight there, because I think what most of us do, and especially us in the Ugandan ecosystem, you find that you have a very minimal budget, and your budget is really tied to doing a very specific thing. We are all bootstrapping, you don't have investment coming in, and so you find that because you have bigger decisions to make, you compromise some of the most important things of your business. So for instance, if I'm looking at, I'm building technology, and especially in the fintech world that involves money, that involves everything,
Yep.
When you're building such a platform, you've got to have things that you can't compromise about. When it comes to security, you have a stress testing person, a security person who comes in and say, just stress attack my server and let's know where we have loopholes. These are all things that need budgets, where you call in a cybersecurity expert and say, we've built this platform, we're about to go live, we're going to be serving X amount of customers, and we need you to do some tests to see if there are any penetration gaps we have in the system. So because people don't have budgets, you'll find that that's a role that you will probably not even think about. Quality assurance is another role when you're doing software development, because you have to have a quality assurance person. When your developers develop code, there has to be another person dedicated to looking at that code and saying, all right, all the aspects of the code are working very well, now we can deploy. And some of those very critical aspects of building some software like that, you bypass them because you want to do the quick and dirty. I'll just have the developers do the work, we'll do a test, we'll deploy on test, and then we'll just go live. And then later on, you find all of these cyber attacks, happening. And so I feel like, again, it's upon us to know what the threats are, whichever business that you're building, and while you're building your budgets, to really compromise and see where can you not compromise, and then make sure that those aspects of your business are tight enough for you to not be faced by all of these cyber threats.
Thank you so much. Now, yes, Collins, you have.
I know you said we'll talk at government in another section, but there's something that I wanted to throw in.
Yes, bring it in.
Yeah. So NITA has done a lot of work in terms of some of the papers and some of the policies they have put out to help digital solutions or tech companies. Some of those documents are a huge resource, like the Data Protection Act, and the checklist that you have to go through for you to ensure that you're legally you're in the right space. Usually some of the things they ask for actually help with some of these things that we're talking about, because they'll ask you like, okay, so where are you storing the user's data? Do you have a backup? Where is this server? Who handles here? Where is your data protection policy? Who has
so they help you align.
Exactly. So what I'm just saying is it's a resource that us as private sector we can take advantage of to make sure that we do the right checklist, ensure that business continuity actually happens for the sake of security, cyber security and all.
Actually, that's the area I wanted us now to tackle. But now that you've given your opinion, the rest of the team will give their own opinions. As these platforms go online, as you make people work and give consumers these services to have them from anywhere, in the private sector, okay, in private businesses, what are those? You guys talked about policy and procedures. What are those, issues in terms of policy we need to put in place so that, so that we are protected in terms of policy, at policy level? Jamila, could you give us some insights in that area?
Yeah, sure thing. I think the government has done a great job in availing us with all of these acts that we can actually use to make sure that we build safe software. Like what Collins had mentioned, the Data Protection Act, the National Payments Act, that if we sit down as technologists and first of all read and understand, and then also comply with when we're building our platforms, to make sure that, because at the end of the day, they are really there to safeguard the users for whom we are building this software, right? So if we go ahead to, you know, work with government to actually understand these acts, to read them, to implement them when we're building our software, so to make sure that the end product is actually usable, it's actually safe, and it's actually making sure that in case we are hacked, or in case we are hacked, we did everything that we could to protect the data of our users.
Thank you so much. Now, let's go and advise government. I think your point, you're also advising government, so I'll skip you. So, Evelyn, now, when things happened, when the pandemic came, the president would go and list, these are essentials, these are not essentials. So the essentials must come to work, must be given special permits to move, others are not essential. I mean, what must government do to achieve the end-to-end reachability of all sectors so that these things of you are essential? Because I'm sure everybody is important. Everybody is important. Now, if you tell somebody who a janitor is not essential, so if you come to office and it's messy, what will happen? In my view, everybody is important. So what are those things that must government do to ensure everybody is aligned? Should a pandemic or a crisis hit, then all of us are able to move the next step, not taking a few and leaving the rest.
I always try not to sound so political when it comes to advising stuff of government, because I get super emotional when it comes to those conversations. But I think in the context of living it in the technology aspect, some of the things that we talked about, for me, I believe that we need to have strong policymakers. I can't underscore that enough. We really need to have people who are connected with what's happening on ground, because I feel like most of the times there's a disconnect between what is going on the ground and what the policymakers are making. And probably that might be because of the age gap, because, you know, we are a very young country and most of the people are young that are actually facing these things, but then the people who are creating the policies are quite old. For me, from a technology perspective, and to make sure that no one is left behind, the first thing we talked about, I think I spoke about it, is you know, having the rights in place. Do we have the policies that allow people, for all of us, if you're getting online, what are some of those rights that you need to know when you're getting online? And I spoke about that report, the cost of exclusion, that actually excludes most women on the internet. If you think about it, most of the people are not getting online because of either being bullied. There's cyber harassment, for instance, law. I don't know if we have, I think we do actually have it in Uganda. Have we gone through it and actually read and see how that can actually be brought to fruition? Because if people are bullied for getting online, or if people are harassed, some people think that, no, that internet thing is not for me, because when I go on, I'm going to, they have that whole Nigerian prince story, that there's either going to be hackers attacking me, or there are going to be people who are, because there's a bad side to the internet where people, especially women, face the biggest, we have the rights in place, and we have the policies that actually